topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
Hello and welcome to Fearless, Fabulous You. I am your host, Melanie Young. Thank you so much for joining me today on W4WN, the Women for Women Network. You can hear all my podcasts anytime, anywhere on over 65 channels, and I invite you to follow me at Melanie Fabulous. I created the show to help women make better choices in their life about self-care, how they want to live, who they want to live with, and how they want to live the best of their life the rest of their life. It started after I was diagnosed for breast cancer, early stage. I'm okay. Underwent treatment and surgery and reconstruction, and then had this solid, what am I doing with the rest of my life? Because when you go through major life upheavals, and in cancer is just one of them, you kind of do a hard mental reset. What do I want to do with the rest of their life? I talk to a lot of women about this, and that's why I created Fearless, Fabulous You, because I do believe you can be fabulous at every stage and age of your life, and sometimes you may need to change and adapt accordingly. So the focus of today's show is the term staying relevant. I hear it all the time. I talk to women all the time. They don't feel relevant. How can they stay relevant? What's the point of being relevant? Are there things that are irrelevant in your life? What is the term relevant? Well, I did a lot of looking it up and to prepare for this show. And good old AI says to stay relevant means to continue being useful, important, or significant over time by adapting to changing circumstances, such as learning new skills, staying informed about current trends and demands, possibly acquiring new knowledge or skill sets for career growth or business development and expansion and scaling. It may mean understanding customer needs and a changing audience as perhaps your audience ages out and a younger audience is coming in. The wine world, the wine industry I'm very closely affiliated with, they're trying to deal with that now as wine consumption is down among younger consumers. People over 50 are still enjoying their wine, but nobody's talking to them because the assumption is they're going to die. Seriously. But people are trying to figure out how wine can stay relevant among young wine drinkers. How can certain shows stay relevant? It goes on and on and on. And it's not just about business, although it seems to be. It's also about life. The key signs of staying relevant, and then we're going to talk about why it even matters, because really I've been wondering that for about a couple of weeks now. The key aspects of staying relevant are being adaptive. Now, that's actually also important as you age. If you want to really show off your signs of being an old fart or an old bag, whichever. I call my husband an old fart. I've been called an old bag, and I've said old fart back to the person who called me an old bag. You got to be adaptive. If you're set in your ways and say, this is the way it's always been done, or this is the way I always want to do it, or this is the way we've done it forever, you're not showing flexibility and adaptability. You're being rigid. Much like your body, if you don't move your body and stretch your body and test your body will become rigid, and that's not good for your health. Well, being rigid in your attitude and not being flexible in how you think about things and approach things, this is bad as not stretching and flexing your body. You're not moving your mental muscle very well, and you will appear to lack relevancy. People will go, old school, old time. Move on. Let's get something fresh and younger to think about it. You're going to get replaced if you're at work in a job. So adaptability is really important. It's also adaptability challenges your inquisitivity. People who are interested in staying relevant, adaptable, are also inquisitive. They're curious. They like to learn new things. Continuous learning is another sign and aspect of staying relevant. Acquiring new knowledge, stretching your mind, not just saying, I want to do the same old thing. Honestly, I think every day about things I want to take up. Today, I was taking a morning walk because I do believe that every morning my body is stiff as a board. And the only thing that gets it going, along with my mind, is moving. So I move every morning, whether it's swimming, walking, biking, yoga. I get my mind and body moving. What I like about swimming and walking is while I'm walking, I'm thinking. I was actually talking to myself, preparing for this show while I was walking today. But I passed some stables that are near me in City Park in beautiful New Orleans, where we live. And I saw two people riding horses. And I thought to myself, wow, I live so close to these beautiful stables. Why don't I take riding lessons? Why don't I try riding a horse? I've kind of been scared of horses ever since Christopher Reeve had that terrible accident, the actor. For a very brief millisecond, I took up riding to impress one of my British boyfriends. He dumped me, so I quit riding. But I thought, it's here, take it up. Further down on my walk, I saw these beautiful tennis courts. I used to play tennis as a young girl, and I quit slowly after my mastectomy. My hands, my upper body just wasn't strong, but I've tried pickleball. And I said, why am I not taking pickleball lessons and really getting back on the court? I walked a little further and I started thinking about, I made a mental list. I literally made a mental bucket list. You have bucket lists of travel. God knows I have lots of those. And I've been fortunate to, check off a lot of my travel bucket list, but I made a mental bucket list of things I want to learn, skills I want to acquire, things I want to learn before I die. And I hopefully have a couple more years left, but you never know, right? So I made a list, and I'd like to learn how to design jewelry. I'd like to understand artificial intelligence, master it, because that is important if you want to stay relevant in the workplace. I like the idea of learning about vintage jewelry because it's something that interests me, and I've been starting to sell it. I inherited a lot of vintage jewelry. I love to go to estate sales. I love to study it. I happen to love vintage jewelry to sell, to wear. And also I'd like to take an art course to learn how to take vintage jewelry and put it into artwork, either wearable clothing or framed art. I was at exhibit in New Orleans for a street festival, and I saw this beautiful piece of art made of vintage jewelry, and it inspired me. I want to do more with my hands. I've started making granola, and I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great to try to start a line of granola and just sell it at local street fairs? I think you see where I'm going with this. The idea is that I'm open to learning new things, and I have made a mental bucket list to do it. And I'm encouraging you to do the same thing. Make a mental bucket list of things you'd like to continue learning. It could also be reading. It could be, I'd like to read the Financial Times every day. I'd like to master investing. I'd like to do that too. I've started reading more financial newsletters. The thing is, if you do this, you are keeping your mind open and you're keeping yourself relevant. If you choose to enter the workforce or create a consulting business or do something as a side hustle, even write about a topic that keeps you relevant. I would love to write about wine for a senior magazine. Actually this week, I wrote AARP magazine with a pitch to create a wine column. Because I think that would be great to create a wine column to talk to people who no one is talking to. And I don't think people are talking to people who are 50 about wine. They're too busy wringing their hands trying to figure out how to reach young people. I think you see where I'm going. Anything is possible and everything is possible if you decide you want to do it and put your mind to it. I don't think can't is part of the language. Can is possible. You can do it if you choose. And the obstacles, like I don't have money. Okay, so I don't have money to sign up for this course or this writing program, but there are a zillion meetups. Go to Meetup. There's meetups in your neighborhood. There's meetups online. Type in the type of thing you want to learn about or connect with people about. You'll find people in meetups, and they're usually free. Another one, believe it or not, I was taking a bike ride over the weekend. I finally got back on my bike. It had been a while because I have an issue with riding bikes because I had a bad fall as a little girl. So every time I get on it, I'm petrified somebody's going to hit me. I'm going to go over. A very dear friend of mine just had a bike accident, wasn't wearing a helmet. She's okay, but she hurt her shoulder. All those things trigger my fear of riding a bike, but I'm fearless. So I got back on that damn bike and I rode the bike down to Cafe Du Monde for a just amazing iced chilled cafe au lait at Cafe Du Monde. If you ever come to New Orleans, you must do that. Cafe Du Monde, iced coffee, cafe au lait, and beignets. And while I was there, I saw a group of young girls with yoga mats. And I said, because I also ask questions and talk to everybody, which is another way to glean information. I said, where are you doing yoga around here? And is it free? And they said, yes. We do a free yoga over, and they showed me we're in the bandstand in beautiful City Park. And I thought, wow, I'd love to do that. It's free, it's yoga, and it keeps me moving. And I said, where did you learn about it? Because I'm always curious where to learn about things. And they said, Reddit, Redditt. Now, if you're not on Reddit, maybe it's time to get on Reddit because there's a lot of people there sharing a lot of information, which brings me back to technology. If you want to stay relevant and you want to stay connected, you better master technology. You don't have to become a TikTok star. You don't have to be like constantly posting on Instagram or whatever, but it helps a whole lot to become savvy about technology and how it can help you make your life easier, inform you, and keep you relevant. So maybe take a class. Another great source besides Meetup and Reddit is AARP. AARP has a lot of classes if you're a member. Also, this is a great one if you're not a member of AARP. I've been a member of AARP forever. I wish they'd hire me to write a wine column. Here's another great resource for learning and expanding your mind that is often free or low cost. Your public library. My local public library, which I go to every week because I love checking out library books. I'm a good old-fashioned book reader, even though I do have many online books as well. They offer quilting classes, a free notary public certain times of the day, free jigsaw puzzles, classes in language as English as a second language and other languages, and many other courses. And that's just my little public library. Go to your local public library and see what classes they offer. And if it doesn't exist, offer to teach one. Maybe you're an expert on tax advice. Maybe you're an expert on social media. Maybe you're an expert on changing your life and writing a new chapter. Maybe you're an expert on learning to declutter. I've done all those things. And libraries would love to hear from you. And you can go in and teach and really make yourself relevant in a different way. I've actually thought about taking this show, Fearless, Fabulous You, and changing it all together because I've been doing it for 12 years. Is it still relevant? I don't know. You tell me. I've actually thought about changing it to address a common problem many people have. Many people have, and we're going through it right now, where you're like, what to do with all the stuff that you have accumulated over the years, and does any of it have any value? Why not create like Antiques Roadshow, but just make it everyday roadshow, not just antiques, and evaluate stuff as it come in? I'm a member of probably 4 or 5 groups that are, vintage jewelry, Civil War books, vintage clothes, with people who inherit attics worth of stuff, don't know if there's value in it, and just need someone to guide them. I think it'd be so much fun. If you think that's, you agree, shoot me an Instagram about that at Melanie Fabulous. I'd love to hear from you because I think it's an opportunity. Again, keeping adaptable, aware, curious, and useful. We just, teaching a class, mentoring. If you can afford not to work, I love you. You're awesome. I would love to be you. I still have to work. It's getting harder to find jobs that pay well or consulting gigs, but consulting is always a way to do it. And you can mentor people. There are wonderful mentoring networks where you can take your skills and your knowledge and mentor someone. I was so honored this week because one of my former staff members, I don't even call them staff, they were part of my team at my New York events and public relations agency, M. Young Communications, which I ran for over 20 years. She has succeeded me in a very big position running the James Beard Foundation Awards, which I started and ran in New York for the first 16 years. Dawn was my executive assistant. She was great. Worked for me for, probably 17 or 18 of my 20-something years running my company. And a couple of years ago, she got tapped to become the vice president of the James Beard Awards. I was happy for her. Some people said, "Are you upset? She took your job." Well, no, my job was eliminated a long time ago. She took the role, and I'm very happy for her. Why? Because I want to see people that I mentored in my career succeed. Dawn did a speech. She called me and said, "I want to talk to you about it." And she read what she was going to say. And she basically was asked to do a speech on mentoring. And she gave me credit for being her mentor and helping her be where she is today. And I have to tell you, of all the things I've achieved, starting the James Beard Awards, starting Restaurant Week for the city of New York, running a successful company, helping raise lots and lots of money, millions of dollars for charities, working with Condé Nast Publications and producing events all around the country. You name it, I did it. It was awesome. My biggest achievement is mentoring people and seeing them succeed and move on to do great things. I think that's something to think about, which brings me back to being relevant. So I've been talking about why it's important to be relevant. People want you to be relevant so you can get a job, stay relevant in business, make sure that you are growing and expanding both mentally, financially, in community, whatever. Relevancy is so important as long as you're alive. However, I also have to say, is it always important to be relative? Is that like the end all of all things? And I have to say no. I thought about that as well because something happened recently to me. Well, a couple of things. I used to cringe and still do it the word formally. I hate it, or you used to be, or I formerly was, or I once was, because it makes it sound like you aren't relevant. And someone said to me, I was interviewed for a podcast on food, and she said, "You used to be really big. You used to be a big force." And I said, "I'm still big and grown and a force in a different way because I'm fearless and I'm still here." So never use the word formerly or used to be or once was. Always give people credit for everything they did in their past, but lift them up and say, she's amazing, all the things she has done in her life and continues to be so, because nothing makes someone feel less than relevant when you discount them and say she was formerly or you used to be. I'll never forget. I referenced it earlier. I was in New York. This happened with the same guy twice. He works for Wine Spectator. And a couple of years ago, I had lost a lot of business, which is painful. It happens in business. You take the good with the bad, the crap with the crud with the great. And he said, "Are you still in the business, you old bag?" That's the first. He said, "You still in this business, you old bag?" And I said, "Are you still in it, you old fart?" And we laughed and snickered. And many years later, like last year, 2024, I saw him again in New York. I was up there for a big wine event, the New York Wine Experience. And he said, "You still in the business?" And I was waiting for the yo bag. I I said, yeah. And apparently you are too, because we're at the same event. Anyway, just be careful where you tread on people and what you say to them, because it can make people feel less than relevant or less than fabulous if you say formerly or used to be. Always build people up. If they were formerly and maybe they're retired and maybe they're working to rewire, which many of my friends are, say this person is amazing. She has done so much to help her industry or move people forward. You must meet her. Don't say she used to. And if you are retiring, gosh, you are the luckiest person on earth if you're retiring and you have all that time on your hand to come up with things you want to do or not. But what I don't want you to do if you are retiring is say, I got to stay relevant if you don't want to, which brings me to, is staying relevant always necessary? I don't think so. And I know a lot of people will disagree with me. But sometimes you just don't need to keep up with the Joneses anymore. You don't need to do anything to connect and impress or stay relevant, because maybe you just want to be who you are and enjoy the life you have. And that's fine too. It's perfectly fine too, as long as you're happy. Because you don't need to measure up to anyone. You don't need to measure up to anyone and their expectations. You just need to measure up into yourself and say, I am who I am. And I like who I am just fine. And that's okay. It's perfectly, my mother was like that. My mother, the purple lady, this is one of her paintings. This is one of her outfits. She was the purple lady. So yeah, that's who she was. She was a personality. She was worried more about her legacy than her relevancy. She remained firm in who she was. And if she didn't want to do something, she didn't do it. And if she wanted to learn it, she did. She was a voracious reader. She loved raising money for charities. She loved doing the things that sung to her soul. But if it didn't sing to her soul and didn't seem relevant to her life, she wasn't interested. She was more worried about legacy. How will people remember me when we live on? Which is another reason I'm doing this show. Because at the end of the day, at the end of your life, does being relevant really matter? My mother-in-law, Sally Ransom, died a little over a week ago, September 5th, 2025. Dave and I were in Maui having a wonderful vacation where we didn't drink. We didn't do emails. We didn't do any work. We just completely detoxed, and I don't like the word detox. So we detached and just lived in the moment. Read books, did all the things we love doing without worrying about anything. And I encourage everybody to do that sometime. We got the news that Sally had passed in her sleep. She was 93. It wasn't unexpected, but it's still a death, and the death of a maternal figure. And for Dave and I, the last parent. My parents are dead, and now both his parents are dead. So it kind of sunk in, and we both let it sink in differently. And of course, my instinct, because it's just my instinct as a writer and an event person and someone who's always coming up with things, I was like, when's the obituary coming out? Because the first thing I did when my best friend Julie died, I wrote her obituary. I wrote my mother's obituary while she was still alive, because she was a control freak. She wanted to make sure she knew what people were saying about her. My mother and I wrote my dad's obituary together. Obituaries to me are a beautiful tribute to someone's life. Obituary is like saying the final word about somebody. It's a testament to who they were and why they were here on this earth and how you want to remember them. I am the biggest obituary reader. I'd like to be an obituary writer. I read the obituaries at the New York Times, love them. I'd like to write obituaries. I don't think it's negative. I think it's a very positive thing. You're honoring someone's life. So I said, where's the obituary going to appear? Because she lived different places. And the response was from one of the brothers, there's not going to be an obituary. She didn't really have any friends left. And I let that sink in, because many of us may outlive our friends. It made me think about, how many friends do I have left now? I've moved 4 times. I have different friends in different places. Will they remember me or not? But my mind started tail spinning with that about not having a final word, not sewing things up with words. So I sat down and wrote. And I wrote something on my Substack, somewhat a tribute to Sally, but more about a visit, a remembrance of our final visit to see her in Palm Beach, which she loved. And it was purely in my voice, because I would never want to write the obituary of someone's mother without being asked. But it made me think about writing my own obituary, and more importantly, made me think about relevancy, because even if you outlast your friends or family, even if you're no longer working and making an income or have an identity, a work identity, even if you're not a member of a church, even if you've moved and you're living independent living, whatever, you never want to outlive, does relevancy even matter? Does it really matter? What really matters is who you are and your character, and the beautiful life you graced on this earth, and the contributions you made, and the family you raised, and the friends you nourished, and the personality and the joy you brought. And the joy you brought to others, and the companionship to your loved ones, and the caring care you gave to your children and your friends and family, and the joy you had in doing things, whether it was traveling, playing tennis, riding horses, collecting jewelry, art, whatever. At the end of the day, I think that deserves a wonderful tribute. It's not about whether you are relevant in life anymore or not. I don't think being relevant really matters when the end is near. What really matters is you had a great life, and everyone deserves to be recognized, whether you agree with them or not. This same week we had a controversial person who was murdered. I don't want to get into it because I try really hard to stay out of political discussions, whether you agree with this person or not. He was murdered, and murder is bad. Murder is wrong. And whether you agree with him or not, and whether you felt that person was relevant or not, that person still had a life and a family and has an obituary and deserves, will be remembered. And it's like that with many people. You may not choose to remember everybody or consider them part of the world you want to live in, but they still remained relevant for what they did, and they touched people's lives. The one thing in this AI thing, and AI is something I'm learning myself, they said the key aspects of staying relevant are adaptability, continued learning, awareness, usefulness. Everybody's useful. And innovation. I think it's also important that relevancy means that you lived the best life you could. You brought joy to others and lived in joy yourself. And everything you did was relevant because you did it with purpose. The one thing they don't have in here, AI, because AI is not perfect, is purpose. And I think being relevant is having purpose. And your purpose and my purpose may be different. Your purpose may be simple. I just want to be healthy, be with my family, get Thanksgiving dinner ready, and have people over, take walks every day. And other people may say, no, I want my purpose. I want to start a charity. I want to save the world. I want to feed children. I want to start a new business. Everybody has different levels and types of purpose, and they're all good because it's purpose. And to me, purpose is more important than relevancy. And being relevant to me means having purpose. I don't think you could be relevant unless you have purpose. What is the purpose? So I want you to think about that, because if anyone ever says to you, that's irrelevant, it's no longer relevant, you need to be ready with a response to say, but I have purpose and I have a presence, and that is relevant. I think it's really important because a lot of people start to feel a little blue when they feel like being aged out and locked out and life is getting shorter, or a good friend dies, or something terrible happens at the news. And I think you have to do this like mental reset about purpose and passion and reset it. And maybe turn off. There's a zillion podcasts out there, by the way, on staying relevant. Mine is not about that. This particular topic is about it because it was top of mind, because things happened in the world and in my life that made me think about relevancy and what's the point? What's the point when you're all going to go down the same path anyway? Well, I think the point is making the journey better and making it more purposeful. And by doing that, as I said, you will believe in being more relevant if you choose to want to have that feeling. And people will see it. And if anyone discounts you in any other way and says you're no longer relevant, you need to be able to say either screw you or you're so wrong and let me correct that. Because you should stand up for yourself when people try to, say you're not relevant. Anyway, again, if you're in business, this is a whole nother topic. You've got to stay relevant to adapt to market changes. It's a whole nother discussion. I'm really talking about it in our personal life. Anyway, I'm going to leave you with something I've been doing frequently. First, I'm going to again remind you, a lot of this is discussed in my book, Fearless, Fabulous You, Lessons on Living Life on Your Terms. This is my blatant promotion for my book. I have a section. It basically says how to stay fearless and fabulous at every age and stage of your life, so you feel purposeful and relevant. One is to recharge your mental batteries and rethink what you think about yourself and your purpose. Revalue your own self-worth, because when people say you're irrelevant, they're really carving down your self-worth, and that's not fair. Release negative energy and thoughts that are self-defeating, like I can't, I shouldn't, I mustn't, I don't have the skills, I don't have the money, blah, blah, blah. Release it and expand your mind to see opportunities. The great Audrey Hepburn said, I don't believe in impossibility, because impossibility can also be seen as I'm possible. Impossible, I'm possible. I'm possible. Reconnect with your amazing talents and repurpose them. So if you're a good speaker, you're a good writer, you're a good trainer, maybe get out of your industry. Maybe you have aged out of your industry, or maybe you're no longer relevant in your industry because honestly, you're not doing anything that your industry cares about or utilizes anymore. That just happens. Remember Kodak and the good old land cameras? Everybody now has an iPhone. That's an example. Or the BlackBerry or the data processor. Sometimes things just do get phased out, aged out, and replaced. So you don't want to be fully replaced or irrelevant. So have your skill set brushed up, take new classes, learn new things, and apply them to different industries and audiences. Reframe the vision of what you want to have happen. If it's not working, if something's not working, a relationship, a job, a situation, where you're living, reframe it. Do a vision board. Say, this is where I want to be next. I did that. I did a vision board. I ended up in the Hudson Valley. Loved it. Then I said it wasn't for me anymore. Did another vision board. Sold my house and possessions. Wanted to be debt-free, stress-free, life-free. Lived on the road for 2 years that way. Almost 2 years. Then I had to go home. Take care of my mom. It was inevitable. Who else was going to do it? I'm an only child. She was a widow. She needed help. I was there for her. Did it for almost 2 years. She died. Inherited a house, sold the house, didn't know how to do an estate sale, but taught myself to do it because I didn't want to, nobody would work with us because the house was so cluttered. So I had to learn something fast, kind of like doing it. Now I love going to estate sales. And now I'm in New Orleans. Had another vision board. Where do I love to be? That's fun, less stressful, lots of friends and some family. Here I am. So reframe. Think about the possibilities. You're not stuck unless you make yourself stuck. Lastly, reclaim your brilliance and say, I own it. Own who you are and your identity. Own who you are and your identity. I'm going to say that slower. And you're amazing you. And never, ever let people make you feel like you're irrelevant. Right? So that's the book, Fearless, Fabulous You, Lessons on Living Life in Your Terms. You can get it on Amazon. You can write me. I have about 200 in my closet, and I'll autograph them for you. I'm selling them for $8. Melanie at melaniefabulous.com. So that's my diatribe, as they say, on relevancy and staying relevant, and whether it's, does it matter, period, in life. What matters more than being relevant is having great character and being a person with great character and a person with great manners. So with that in mind, I'm going to leave you with something I say to myself. It was, I think, Dear Abby, or Ann Landers, one of them, Abby, and they were sisters, wrote, and my mother put on my pillow one night when I was fighting with her. I was fighting with her about stuff. I fought with her a lot. And she put it on my pillow, and I read it, and I read it again, and I read it to myself all the time. In fact, I've read it to myself so much that I don't think I can read it here. I think I know it by heart, and just bear with me if I screw it up. But it goes like this. What is class? Class never runs scared. It is sure-footed that it can meet life head-on and handle what comes along. Class never makes mistakes. Oh, no. Class never makes excuses. It takes its lumps and learns from past mistakes to move on. Class is considerate of others. It knows that good manners is nothing more than a series of petty sacrifices. Everybody wants to feel better. Manners matter. Class bespeaks an aristocracy that has nothing to do with ancestry or wealth. The descendants of royalty can lack class, true class, while the descendants of a Tennessee or Kentucky coal miner may ooze class from every pore. It's how you treat people, how you make them feel. Class never builds itself up by tearing others down. Class is already up and need not strive to look better by making others look worse. Class can walk with kings and keep its virtue, and talk with crowds and keep the tongue in touch. Everyone is comfortable with the person who has class because she is comfortable with herself in her own skin and wants to make you feel that way. If you have class, all the money in the world that you have doesn't matter. And if you have all the money in the world, if you don't have class, it doesn't matter either. You can't buy class. You have to have class. You have to be class. You have to earn class. It's inherent. It's in how you treat people, how you see yourself, and how you have an outlook on the world. So I hope you're top of your class and you never lose it. And you never lose your spirit, your fearless, fabulous spirit. And you never, ever let anyone make you feel anything less than fabulous, because you're always relevant if you look at yourself. And if you ever have any doubts, just look in the mirror. This is what I did in my worst days during chemotherapy or when I was dealing with horrible clients. I would just look in the mirror and I would say that class. I would say that class speech to myself. And then I would look at myself and say, hey, Melanie, here's the fearless, fabulous you. And I say that to you now. Here's the fearless, fabulous you. You have choices in life on how you want to live. Hopefully many, maybe a few. But always choose to live on your terms and not be limited by the terms people set for you. And always choose, no matter what, to have class, exude class, and be fearless and fabulous. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Fearless, Fabulous You.